morning. Good morning. Yay!
Oh, it's a compliment to see you guys. Alan and
goodness.
Emily, Pizzo, Edgar.
Oh my gosh, Emily. Yay! I'm so excited you're on the call. Good morning,
Great to
Jim.
see you.
Oh my gosh, hopefully people turn on their cameras. Otherwise, it's just going to be you and me looking beautiful today, Sarah. What do you think?
I came dressed for this. If you are dressed above the neck,
yeah.
Go ahead and turn on your camera. We would love to see your faces.
Yeah.
This is
oh my gosh, look.
Absolutely interactive. Thank you for participating, Pizzo. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, a beautiful background. Okay, you guys, we're going to get rocking and rolling because for those of you who've joined the call, I told Sarah, like before we let you guys on, that this is one of my absolute favorite things to talk about, to coach around. And a lot of times people don't come to the training on the Big Why for many reasons, but we're going to go ahead and have an open dialogue for those of you guys who've decided to be on, and hopefully the conversation that we have today will help us discover our whys as well as share with others the path to creating your why. We are going to unpack some things today, and I'm hoping that each of you are going to walk away with either a strong why or help you walk the path to create the why in your life. So you ready to rock and roll, Sarah?
I am so excited. And just so you all know, this is absolutely a mastermind, not a webinar. So please feel free to chime in. Naturally, Leslie and I will fill the dead space because we want to make sure you get every moment out of this. But anytime you'd like, unmute, chime in. We want to make sure that we're hanging out together.
I love it. Oh, yay, more people. Sorry, I just made you co-host so you can help with that too.
Perfect.
Okay, and for those of you who are new to this is our Momentum Mastermind. We are specifically, although this topic applies to everybody at every single production level, this specific one is usually for people or conversations focused at that 0 to 2.5 million. We do record these so we can share them and you can refer back to them in the future. We want to make sure that we know that this is a safe place to grow and learn. So, and ask any and all questions. Sarah and I are an open book. So we're going to rock and roll. We are going to start the same way we start most of these, with the mindset behind the Big Why. So Sarah, let's just start with that. Or let's just open it up to the room and then we'll add our little nuggets of goodness. You guys, why do you think it is important for us to have a big why, right? Silence.
You know, I think for so many people, it should be what's getting you out of bed in the morning, but we all got up for this call either way. What about you, Pizzo? What do you think?
Yes, it is important because, well, in general, there are so many things that one can think of, but being in real estate, you need to be focused and have a perspective as to exactly what is most important that one needs to concentrate on. So you identify that, then you put all your energies on that.
I love that word, energy, right?
Yes.
Like that, you just hit it on the head, right? And what I want to stop and say right now is the reason we're starting with this is you will see that the masterminds this month are to help you walk the path to setting your business goals for 2022. And as logical business owners, we have a tendency to want to get right to the brass tacks, and the strategies is that it's important to hit those numbers, why it is important for us to pick up that 1,000-pound phone, why it is important for us to get out of bed every single day. So Sarah, what do you have to add to that?
I think that it's wild what a personal and vulnerable place it is. I mean, you're talking about your why, and the essence of it is kind of this existence conversation. You know, all of a sudden you have to decide that there's something more important that's bigger. You know, why you exist or what your goal is at the end of the day. It's not just about deciding whether or not you're going to show that house today or decide whether or not you're going to make your marketing plan. You're deciding why you're going to exist in those actions every day. And I think that that's really vulnerable, and that's like kind of scary and it's hard.
I love that. Now, of course, no mastermind is complete without giving you resources. We're going to refer back to this amazing book very quickly. We're going to drop some page numbers on you so you can use it as a tool. And the first thing that we're going to do is page 71 of the MREA is where you're going to focus on and get a glimpse of the big why. We're going to go deeper today than what they present in that chapter. But there's a couple of things that they talk about, and you're specifically going to the section that says the 9 ways that millionaire real estate agents think. And the number 1 thing on the list is?
The first thing?
The very first thing is
knowing that big, huge why. Think powered by a big why.
Think powered by a big why. And it says, above all else, we've discovered that the one thing all high achievers have in common is they are working for a big why. The big why is about having a purpose, a mission, or a need that in turn gives you focus. And then, Pisu, you hit it on the head, right? Like, a big why brings a big focus and big energy, and a little why brings little focus and little energy. So we talked a little bit about this, and we're going to go deeper, right? Like, it's okay. So theoretically, we understand that to set those goals and that it's important to have these big whys to set those goals. So let's get to the reason people don't. Sarah, why don't you think that people think about their big why?
You know, oftentimes it's just hard. It can be emotional, right? I think discernment is something that we don't talk about very often. Discernment really means getting to the bottom of the truth. We don't sit alone long enough to hear ourselves, to hear that voice. Most of the time when we talk about our big why, we're reading a book, or we're sitting in a mastermind and everyone's like, what's your why? Go deeper. What about go deeper? No, go deeper, you know, and we're not sitting alone, listening to that voice inside of us. And when we are, we're usually like questioning that voice inside. What about this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? And my biggest takeaway is that soul versus ego voice. That we can sit there and we hear this ego. It feels like it's coming from our head or our throat. And it's asking questions and it's got this big thought. And then when we sit there quiet long enough, the soul really starts to speak. And it's not long sentences and paragraphs. It's saying things like, yes, keep going. And so I think that practice, I'm not a meditator. I turn on podcasts and radio every time I get in the car. That's an area where I need to grow in is really learning to kind of sit and listen and find that soul voice again. And I think that's a reflection of my why conversation. We kind of never stop having it. And so I think for me that's a big piece, is just learning how to sit there and sit in that space. You got to get in touch with what motivates you. And if you're living the American dream, it means that you've been taking a lot of advice from the outside world for a long time about what you should do. Oh, well, you should sell this much a year, or you should make $1 million, or you should give $1 million, or, the world's got this plan for you. And all of a sudden you realize, I don't want to wake up every day for my children's dreams, for my husband's dreams, for society's dreams. And if I'm going to wake up for my own dreams, I have to know why. And that's a much more philosophical conversation than just filling out a worksheet. So what do you think, Leslie, or anybody? What about you, Latasha? What do you think, why don't people think about their why?
You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of the Nelson Mandela, who says, like, your serving small does not serve the world. Like, it makes me think sometimes we're just like, that can't be my big why, because that's too big.
Yeah.
Just a little person over here. How can that be my big why? And I think we get scared of the fact that God created us to be big. He didn't create us to serve the world small. Don't be afraid to let your light shine. I know that's one of my struggles, is just owning that, no, that's big, because, you know, God has big plans for your life to impact people for good, right? And I think that we have to remember that we can do good. Money does good. Money does good. And we don't have to be afraid to earn it, because we're going to turn around and do good with it. So I just think sometimes we're scared to dream big because we don't want to even write that down. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Tosh, that was so good. And I'm going to say, I think you guys have hit it right on the head, right? Like the number one reason why it's hard is because it's uncomfortable. Whatever that means, right? Is that for those of us that are logical thinkers, this is going to take us to emotion. And sometimes as business owners, we're like, no, we don't want to go there, right? One, because we might be uncomfortable with emotion, but also because we love checking boxes, right?
Yeah.
And that big why doesn't fulfill that euphoric high of checking the boxes, doing the needed, like getting that to-do list done instead of getting that success list done. And the other thing is you guys touch on it a lot. It can be scary, and success lies in the places we hide, right? And you're going to have to unpack some things, most likely to get to your big why. In fact, I find that many people who believe they have a big why after a session like this may go back and reevaluate and understand that what they have identified as their big why may very well just be the tip of the iceberg of what the true big why really is. So now I'm going to give you the 4 reasons for, after coaching thousands of agents, of what I believe, and I want to get your feedback of what else am I missing, right? Here are the 4 top reasons why people struggle with a big why. Number 1, they believe that their big why has to be all encompassing. It has to be so large and so broad that it has to cover every single aspect of their life. And they're just gun shy to settle on one, right? Like, how do I possibly create a big why that's going to cover the 5 major functions or the 5 major pillars in my life, which include faith, family, fun, fitness, and finance? How do I set a single one big why?
That's probably been my biggest struggle with the why, is that idea. So that's really powerful that it's number 1. It's really easy to just keep going. It's not big enough. If it wakes you up in the morning, if it helps fulfill your dreams, if it helps you build a better life, you can have your why, whatever it is, as long as it's big enough for you.
Now, here's the big thing, you guys. On the path to creating your big why, my recommendation is to set a big why for each of those categories. And you may find that it's the same big why, but sometimes doing that will help us to our ultimate big why, right? And what Gary would say is the right kind of big why will also tend to lend foundational to support to all aspects of your life. But if we break down each of those 5 and we say, this is my big why in this category, then it's going to help us walk that path. And as long as each of those whys in each of those categories is compelling, you're going to get there. Let go of the big thing. Success is sequential, right? Not simultaneous. Number 2, the reason people stumble. They think it is meant to be forever.
Oh.
You guys, let me ask you, show of hands if you're on, who considers themselves the same person as they were 5 years ago?
It's been a wild few years. Post-COVID, we're all different.
Some of us have lived 5 lifetimes in the last 5 years,
Yeah,
right?
Truly.
So we have to understand that as we grow as individuals, as our experiences change, as different people, individuals enter our lives, we need to reserve the right to be normal, healthy, rational, and growth-minded individuals that our why will evolve as we evolve. I'll give you a great example of this because I'm not going to share my kind of evolution of why until we kind of get towards the end, because I want you guys to have an opportunity to start developing yours in your own mind. Number 3, they think it has to be something monumental or world changing. Here's a secret, you guys, and this is a really hard one because Sarah and I were talking about this before we got on the call, is one of the hardest things to navigate, especially those of Latasha and those of you who are leading others, is that there's a lot of shame around a big why sometimes. Embarrassment, if you will, right? Let me give you an example. My big why is to make, like somebody's big why may be to make enough money to ensure that their kids don't go hungry. And somebody else's big why is to make sure that they solve world hunger for the rest of the world.
Perfect example.
Right? So the individual who's like, listen, I'm struggling just to put food on the table every day is never going to come to the table and say, hey, I'm just trying to get, make sure my kids eat 3 meals a day. Now, as leaders or as people who are walking the path ourselves, we need to create that space that's safe to say, as long as it is important to you, that is the most important thing. That the why is a truly personal experience that you can choose to share or you can choose to keep secret.
That's extraordinary, that shame piece. And even sometimes with really positive big whys. Oh, you want to cure world hunger. Good for you, fancy realtor, give 2% of your things to the kids. It's amazing how much we can be so judgmental or think we have some right to judge each other's whys, and how sad it is when we realize when we've done it to other people. And how that, we've all worked in a place where that culture existed. And I think it's really powerful at every Keller Williams office that I've had any contact with, that it is a safe place that you can say these things. You don't have to be embarrassed that your goal is to make $1 million because somebody once told you should take shame in being rich, and it's amazing even when it's something positive, like changing the world. And people are like, the more you tell people, the more you sound like, some savior type, when that's your big why. Who cares about them? Keep your eyes on your own paper. Yeah. But it's easy to say that.
And on the flip side of that, some people do have a really big why, right? And they might not share it because they might feel that it's braggadocious.
Latasha,
I also feel like what you said about my big why is that my kids eat 3 times a day. I think it's important too that your big why does not have to be life changing. It doesn't have to be world hunger. It could just be like, I want to buy a house and so my parents can move in with me instead of senior care. That's beautiful. And I think that also helps. I think maybe part of the reason why we struggle with the big why is because we're like, okay, well, I don't really want to save the world. Let's see, you're trying to figure out what your superpower is, how you're going to go, and it's like, no, it could just be, if you impact your family in a positive way, that puts them in a position to impact people in a positive way. There is no big why. If it's like Leslie said, I appreciate that, because if it's big to you, then it's big. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to want to be Gary Keller to have a big why,
And let's be honest, when you get to a place, if that's your goal, we're going to just continue to use this one example. We could pull 1 million, right? If your big why is to ensure that your kids have meals 3 times a day, awesome. When you accomplish that, you get to set a new one.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's extraordinary. That you're not always trying to pick something that's a 10-year goal. you know,
It's
why?
the thing that's going, because I guarantee you guys, here's the deal. For many of us, solving world hunger is so big and so far out there. The truth is, guys, it's probably not getting you out of bed every day.
Yeah. But if we said, what's going to get you out of bed this winter? Wow, that's where my head starts to go, you know, thinking about things on that shorter span of time.
Now, and here's the truth, guys, we can't solve world hunger if our own kids are eating, right? Like, remember, this is the path, right? So, and you guys, this is super fun because I just thought of a number 5. I'm going to give you number 4, and then I'm going to give you my number 5. And this is a really important one too. And anybody who's been in the bold room might have experienced this. They struggle with the big why because they think it can't be done, or they think that they don't deserve it.
Fear they're not capable.
Not capable, or just don't deserve. I don't deserve to be somebody who makes that much money.
Wow.
It's ridiculous that I would be able to take my kids on 4 vacations a year. I don't deserve that. I don't deserve to retire at 55. My parents worked until they were 80. I don't deserve to buy that designer suit or get my hair done by a hairdresser on a regular basis, or whatever other things you're going to tell yourself, right? I don't deserve it, or it just can't be done. Also known as limiting beliefs. And the number 5 one that I just thought of through, Tosh, you said something that kicked this one into my brain is they struggle with a big why because they believe having a why is selfish.
The idea that you might get out of bed in the morning for something that you love. Oh, this one hits parents hard, right? And you're like, no, I'm just supposed to get out of bed, feed those 3 kids, right?
The truth is that goes back to Sarah, something you said, is we live in a world where we believe we're being judged about who we should be, who we could be, how we're supposed to show up, how we're supposed to parent, how we're supposed to look when we go to appointments, how we deal with our friends, our family, what kind of home we should live in, what kind of car we should drive. And to set aside something so important that it's just about us is just, quite frankly, selfish, right?
Far be it from us to do something with ourselves that doesn't land us right in the middle, in line with all the people and the things, you know. Interesting when society has so many goals for us. Can anybody speak to that feeling of living for someone else's why versus their own?
I can. My screen is not on because I am feeding my children right now.
Good for you.
And I actually was a secret agent for a little bit. My whole training was private. And I didn't really know my why, other than I honestly just felt like God was calling me to do something different. And Keller Williams just kind of kept showing itself to me. And it was all because I wasn't being valued where I was. And I was afraid to tell people that I was going into real estate because I went to college for psychology and mental health. And I spent a lot of time doing that. And in my family, there was that shame of like, well, why would you go into real estate? You went to college for mental health. You've been a lockdown counselor. You've been, you've done all these other things. That's not your why. You can't find value in real estate. Your value is what you went to school for. So I'm discovering all of that for myself now in this first year of real estate.
Amazing. And isn't it extraordinary? Like, if all realtors could have some kind of psychology or mental health training, we'd all be better off. Our clients too, right? So what a huge value I see that, but wild, especially around that college piece, around that educational piece, around the job piece. Gosh, society sure does beat that one over the head, you know?
Agree 100%.
Yeah.
You know, what's so interesting is no matter where you are in your life, you're going to get that, right? But what hopefully in your heart, you will carry something with you today that gives you strength in that. Because even my own daughter came to me when she graduated college and we were talking about what she wanted to do. And she goes, I don't want to do what you do, Mom. I want to change people's lives. And I said, well, do you not think that I help people and change their lives? And she's like, well, I want to make a big difference in the world. And I said, I make sure every day that people have roofs over their head and a safe place to come home to. I help people accomplish the biggest dreams that they've ever had and build a financial security that they never thought that they deserved. And now I teach other people how to do it. And now she helps people with transitional housing. Isn't that fascinating?
She's got her own slice of the industry.
But even those that are closest to us, Trey, like, thank you for sharing that. Like, even those that are closest to us may not understand that. And we need to understand it for ourselves and be able to not defend it, but believe in it. Okay, you guys, what did I miss? Those are my 5. Does anybody else have anything that they're personally experiencing a challenge with discovering that big why?
Those were pretty all-encompassing. That last one just keeps resonating for me. Our spouse, I can remember I was taking a small business class probably 20 years ago to get a grant to start a small business. And you got to go through these 10 weeks of classes to qualify for the grant. And everybody was talking about, lean on your spouse when you need support. As a small business owner, you're going to need to lean on your partner a lot. And I said, what if your partner doesn't really support your business idea? And the whole room, like, record stop. Maybe you need to talk to homegirl over here who's starting her own counseling business and you need to go there. But it was amazing how the people around us, we've bonded these partnerships for life. We've found these lifelong friends, and the idea that you may have a why that isn't totally supported by the people who you're most vulnerable with is a whole lot harder than telling your why in a mastermind. Telling your why to a spouse or a partner or a parent or your children, and have it feel like they are doubting your being. They're doubting your existence because they don't see that why. That really resonates with me.
Okay, Sarah, now every mastermind, I want them to have some tangible takeaways. So now I'm going to give you the 8 steps on how to set and articulate your why. How's this sound,
You might
guys?
have to explain it. Yeah, and tell it to yourself. That's really powerful to know how to articulate it.
Okay, you guys. Number 1, prepare yourself. Hopefully you all have a pen and a piece of paper, because we're going to tell you number 1, and then we're going to stop for a second. Number 1, take time to write down what is important to you and your life. I don't need you to go any further than that, right? Like, what do you believe are the most important things in your life? And if anybody feels brave enough or wants to share, just shout it out, right? Doesn't need to be pretty, fancy, articulate. Like, why do you think you get up every day? What is the reason?
I have God, family, and helping community.
I love it. Anyone else want to share? If you don't, it's no problem. Sarah, we're in a safe zone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Does, besides Latasha, you don't have to tell me what you wrote down, but give me a reaction or a hand up or something. Did anybody write something down? Or are we saving this for homework?
It's going to be your homework too, because the other steps are going to help us refine it. Sarah, if I were to ask you yesterday, what gets you up every day? What do you think it would have been?
I think I have a hope of creating a space long-term where people can really be authentically themselves. And I'd love to do that like someday to like share this little sliver of my why that's so unrelated to my life right now. This is a big why for me, to have a resort property, retreat center, timeshare where people could come and like get creative, and we could like do this type of do our 36 touch campaigns for the weekend, but we're looking at these amazing views and we're away from our business for a few days, and trying to create that on the energetic level every day in our location in Salem. Like this can be used one day, but the towels will be straighter, you know, like this other picture of this place that we're all going to go and get to build our biggest dreams and be feeling like we're on vacation, and kind of creating that. So yesterday, if you had asked me, that's probably what I would have said. I'm trying to get my why a little more specific to keep me getting out of bed, because it's going to start raining every day soon. It's going to be gray every day soon. And I need to make sure that my why is big enough to get me out of bed in this winter.
Okay, hopefully this will help, because you guys, your number 2 step is to reflect on it, right? To give yourself the time and the space and the mental bandwidth to reflect on it, right? Like whatever that looks like in your life. Maybe you do this while exercising. Maybe you set like a getaway where you're not around anybody for 24 hours. Maybe you go on vacation with your family and you sit on a beach and say, is that really what's the most important to me, right? Just create the space, carry it around in your wallet, right? Look at it. Is this really speaking to me on the hardest of your hard days? When you look at what you wrote, does it get you out of bed? Does it get you to pick up the phone? Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, you guys.
You know,
Sarah, I think this one will help you. Oh, Tori, did you have something?
I was just going to say that it's funny because I wrote down like the step, write down what's important to you for number 1. And then the first like thing that came into my head, I instinctively went to reflect on it and ask myself, like, is that really my why? Or is that just what like society says I want? And so it very natural. And I was like, oh shoot, you know, am I going to get number 1 done? Because I'm automatically just in my background, I'm always digging deeper, you know, like, and really truly what is at the heart. So I'm ready to hear the rest of these things and hoping that I can get through them.
Sorry, you just hit number 3. This is a really big one, Sarah. This is what I would challenge you with. Ask why, and why. Your why is like an onion. We have to peel back the layers, right? Why is it? Now, that's going to directly go into the next one, because some people struggle because they might have like a physical or mental or emotional reaction to the word why and asking why 5 times. So if you're still struggling with the why, this one I find super helpful. Ask what or how. Right? I want to make this much money for my kids. The answer is, when I say why, well, because they're important. Right? Now, if I asked it in a different way and said, how would that change your children's life if you accomplished it? What opportunities would that create that would enhance their life? What would it look like? How would you feel? How would your children? That changes the conversation a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. After we do that, I want you to rewrite it down. We're redeveloping the why, because we started with the outside layer of the onion, which is only what we've let the world see so far, or it's still being filtered through all those pre-existing conditions. Why? We asked what and how, and now we're whittling it down. Once you've written it down one more time, then your next step is to refine it to a personal mantra or affirmation.
Ooh.
Why do you think that's important? Why do you think you should make it a personal mantra or affirmation?
So that at least you take ownership
Mhm.
of what you're doing. Yes, then you are responsible, and you can set your goals that you know you believe in and you'll be able to accomplish.
I love it. I love that ownership piece. Why else would we want to do that, you guys?
Latasha, I love that. Change your thinking, change your world. Your cells eavesdrop on your thoughts. Shout out to the bold phrases. I love those bold laws. It's amazing too, when we put something out there, when we talk about the reason for the why is focus. And if someone says, what's your why? And you give the speech like I just gave a few minutes ago. Well, I want to do this thing, and every day I try to like that's kind of what I'm passing out to the universe. Like how quickly and how clear and how focused is my energy right now around my why? Pretty much what you heard, right? But if I had refined that, gotten past those top 3 layers of the onion, and I had a phrase, I could take a marker and write it on my bathroom mirror and say it to myself. And when someone said, what's your why? I'd rattle off that 9 words, 1 sentence. There's a whole lot more focus, right?
And Tosh, you hit it, like you just dropped a lot of affirmations there, right? You guys, is not only are we taking ownership for it, it is becoming embedded in us so that when we say it to ourselves, we feel that strength build in us. Like we feel more confident about it, just saying it, just hearing it, just seeing it. And you know what? That's the mantra. That's the affirmation you're going to say when you're going to on your first $1 million listing appointment. Right? That's what you're going to say to yourself when somebody or something comes into your world so unexpected and it derails you, right? Like that it's going to ground you. It becomes your grounding force.
It's amazing how our schedule, even for the day, knowing our why or not knowing our why, we can start to ask ourselves, when you get that random call from somebody who wants to go to lunch, instead of have you lead gen, instead of all the other things that would have gotten you to your goal, that are feeding that why, when we start to kind of meander from the path, if that why is so clear and we've got it written on that mirror and we can say it in 1 sentence, it's going to be a whole lot easier to check our schedules if we're living in line with that or not.
And I think it becomes more internal that way too,
Yes.
when it's not like, oh, I'm gonna have this why. It's like, no, this is something I'm repeating. I mean this. And if you don't really mean it, you're not gonna be able to say it to yourself every day. So I think it's also like gonna help you narrow down your why, because if you're like, I thought this was my why, but this isn't the message I want to repeat every day, day after day, then that's not it. We have to go back to the drawing board. We got to re-envision and reimagine to make sure that that's lining up with something we do want to feed ourselves every day.
Right? It goes back to that be, do, have. Is this, am I being the person that's going to accomplish this? Am I doing the things that are taken to accomplish this? And by being and doing, then we will have the things that we just said were important. Okay. Once we have created our personal mantra or affirmation, I want you to put it somewhere that you can see every day. Now, I'm going to take this back to the personal aspect, as is for some of us, we might put it right up in our offices. It might be on our refrigerator door. Some of us might have it written and tucked into our wallet. Some of us might have it in the notepad that we take notes on, that we take to our appointments. For me, where I put mine was on the inside of my walk-in closet. So when I got dressed in the morning and I went to shut off the lights, it was the last thing I saw before I stepped into the world that day.
Ooh, your
Right?
lock screen on your phone.
That was my, yes.
Like, where would you guys put your whys at? Where do you think is the best place? I mentioned my bathroom mirror. That's kind of my go-to. But if you're going to write it down somewhere, you're going to see it. Where's that place for you?
Phone. I love it.
I also kind of love the idea of vision boarding around it and putting that somewhere where either where I'm starting my day, ending my day, or maybe somewhere I can go when I'm having a little discouraging day, you know, and go back to in front of that and look at that. So you get a better attitude, you know?
You can't hide from this.
This is your big why, man. Like get the attitude in check. So I think that it's important to remind yourself, because we are our biggest cheerleader, and we're also the opposite of our biggest cheerleader sometimes, because our mind is powerful and those conversations really control our actions.
I love that. Okay, you guys, now we said that this is personal and you can keep it personal. If you've walked these steps and you're living it every day, and that's where you are at in your growth of the big why, awesome. Okay, but this is if we want to really allow ourselves to embrace it, is to share it with a trusted individual, advisor, coach, mentor. I would hesitate. I would say friend or family member, but sometimes that's too close, right? Sometimes we actually need somebody outside of the bubble that is oftentimes impacted by the big why to help hold us accountable to, are we doing the things to accomplish the big why? So think about who that could be in your work. It could be an accountability partner. It could be somebody in the industry that's not a realtor that you just feel safe with, right? This is your safe person, and it needs to be somebody that you trust, and most importantly, empower them to call you out if you have stepped off course. This isn't a yes person. You're so amazing, you're doing great. This is a, hey, tell me how that action helps you accomplish your big why. And then the last thing that I'll say is reevaluate it at temporal landmarks. Sometimes that will be as you're setting goals for the next year. Some people change their big why. Oftentimes it doesn't change every year, right? Usually it's a longer span of time than that, usually seasons of your life, but just keep checking back in at especially temporal landmarks. You get married, you may need to reevaluate. You have a child, you might need to reevaluate. You launch a new business, you might need to reevaluate. You've accomplished the goal. Let's reevaluate. Okay. Now, after all of that, I will share a couple of my big whys so you guys can see a path of a transitioning big why. But before I do that, does anybody want to share where they're at with their big why? For those of you who showed up today, you'll learn a little about me. When I launched into real estate, my big why was to be financially secure enough to take care of my loved ones while ensuring no one ever, emphasis on ever, had to financially support me. It was It was monetary based, but it was what and how that led to that. Now, what was that number determined by? Well, I did the economic model every year to determine what was that financial number that I needed to ensure that no one was ever going to have to support me. Why did I get there? I've been divorced. I lived through a recession. I grew up not wealthy, right? It was a core value of mine to not have anybody have to financially support me. Now, I carried that big why for many years until I accomplished it. And then I read a book called The Go-Giver, and I realized that impact was actually my new big why, right? I could sell 100 homes, check, done. I could teach 100 people how to sell 100 homes, check, done. Then I can teach 100 leaders how to teach 100 people how to sell 100 homes. And now I can teach 100 coaches how to teach 100 leaders how to teach 100 people to sell 100 homes, right? It became impact and reach. And I had that one for a couple of years. Now my big why is to create opportunities that enhance the lives of others. Now, I have a whole lot of strategic plans behind all of that, but every action I take will be run through the litmus test of is this activity creating that? Now, if we backtrack that conversation, I want to say, if you're at the point where you say, hey, I just want to be financially stable, my MRE, every year I did my business plan, told me the number. Every time I went to go buy something expensive, I'd say, wait a second, is this helping me get there? Every time I decided to take a client that was stealing my time, I said, is this supporting that goal? Every time I decided to say yes to something and I knew that one yes meant 1,000 no's, is that the right yes? Becomes the litmus test. Okay, you guys. We are 9:46. I'm going to leave you with one more quote before you go into business planning, because we should always just end with a little Gary, right, Sarah?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's what we pay for.
Yeah. Page 81 of the MREA. If I've learned anything in my life, it is that if you believe something is possible, you tend to focus on the constructive means necessary to make that possibility a reality. I've also learned to believe the opposite. If you don't think something is possible, then you will be blinded to the ways it could be done. It's like a self-imposed blind spot. For anyone who wishes to achieve the very best, this becomes a defining moment. Now that you have a big why and you've decided to adopt big goals and big models to power it, the question is, do you really think it is possible to become a truly high-achieving real estate agent?
What a powerful place to wrap up. Thank you so much, Leslie, for all your words today. We all have plans together on October 20th and 21st, if I remember correctly. This is such a powerful kickoff to the MREA Business Planning Clinic on October 20th and 21st. It's free and it's taught by one of the most impactful leaders in the United States right now. So if you guys need any info on that one, just reach out to your TL. I'm sure every market center will be broadcasting it. So.
Absolutely. Thank you guys today. And for those of you, you can get a hold of me anytime if you want to share a big why or have a one-on-one consulting conversation about how we can help you get there. We appreciate you all. Have a powerful day.